Hey, welcome to 10X Your Team with Cam and Otis. I decided to do it different.
There you go.
There we go. Break up the monotony. We're a father-son leadership podcast where we talk with other lifelong learners about making an impact and solving big problems. And, I just wanted to shake my finger at you two while we're in the green room talking about how hard it is to listen and take notes. What the hell do you think I did in college? Huh? I mean, how do you think I got grades in college?
What do you think we did in college?
You didn't do that. Y'all were probably typing, recording it with your little thing, holding it up. I know y'all were. Yeah.
Oh, no. Always handwritten notes here.
And then you probably listened to it with some fancy earphones and some special booth thing, safe room, all that sort of stuff. And, meanwhile, I didn't take notes. That's why I didn't get good grades in college. Anybody that knows me that's listening knows that I was lying on those two. You always sit next to a pretty girl and let her take notes for you. That is or a really smart buddy of yours, and and just ask him, hey, dude, man, can you share your notes with me?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, Camden. Were there any of those guys on the rugby team that you were when you were hanging out with?
I don't want to throw too much shade at the U of A rugby team because I would joke they're a bunch of nerds now. I don't know what the average GPA on the team is, but it's probably like double what I had in school. And I was one of the smart guys who took good notes when I was playing rugby. So that tells you quite a bit there.
Well, you got that from your mother. You sure as hell didn't get it from me. So, and watch this transition, folks. And speaking of taking notes, creating magazines is like taking a notes. And our guest, my good friend Charlie Stivers, is joining us, and Charlie is the publisher of Goose Mag. And there's a funny looking S in that goose, in the word goose. Charlie, tell us a little bit about Goose Mag before we dump into anything else.
Yeah, so we help people and keep it alive with best practices, as we know in the farm killed the goose because he got greedy. And another lesson to learn in crypto, take some profits, but don't be greedy.
That's, I'm glad I asked that question because all this time I'm just like, Goose, maybe that's his nickname, maybe something like that. That is
a Top Gun reference.
Yeah. I love that you went with the Golden Goose fairy tale for the name. Well done, my friend. Well done.
But last it's cryptocurrency, and if you guys haven't noticed from all the headlines out, Bitcoin is in a lot of those headlines. It's one of the fastest growing asset classes. Now it's like in the top 10, I believe. And in the trillion, it's right over $1 trillion. And the market capitalization is about 2.5 trillion. And part of what I'm trying to explain to people is, hey, if you look at it from stocks and equities, that's about $100 trillion market cap. And there's going to be this over to digital assets or tokenization of assets. And do you think cryptocurrency is going to be in the middle of that? Heck yes. So, 10 trillion in valuation in the next 5 to 6 years or so. But there's a lot of opportunity there. And we teach people is get started in crypto, which is safely and confidently so that you can time to educate yourself, which is what we do in the magazine and on our website and blog. You know, this opportunity and just get the word out and, pay attention to this asset class.
So, Charlie, talking about the asset size and, how cryptocurrency has grown so much, I know that a large piece of that is the pessimism around the economy. People look towards gold. People talk a lot about, the availability as crypto as another substitute for gold to hold the wealth and those kind of things, get it out of the currency and out of that fluctuation. Could you talk a little bit about where the reality of crypto sits right now? Because to me, I've read Bitcoin Standard. We already kind of talked about, the comparison of gold and those kind of things. Then you look at the meme coins and the scammers and all that kind of stuff. So I see the two ends of the spectrum. We know the truth is somewhere in the middle here. Could you talk to us a little bit about where that reality is?
Yeah, as far as a store of value, that's primarily Bitcoin. And it's becoming more than just digital gold. And now there's becoming more of this development in the layer 2 of it, where because it's not a security by the SEC, venture capitalists and developers and innovators, entrepreneurs are starting to see it as an opportunity. So they're developing more and more use cases for it. So like micro payments, just where literally, and I could send you $10, you would get it immediately, and the transaction fee may be 5-10 cents. So all the boxes on, being a peer-to-peer cashless payment system.
So, all right, and by the way, I'm in that. I've read the Bitcoin Standard. I understand blockchain, but I've seen too much hype, and I feel like part of the play is this. How would I put it? False inflation. All right, it's kind of like stocks do, right? Where there's not really a value to it, but because Camden's buying some, well, I'm going to buy some, and Charlie sees that Otis and Camden are buying some, then he's going to buy some, and that whole inflation thing, which got out of control, which was a Doge.
Doge.
Just call it Doge.
Well, there's a lot of them.
I'm sorry, Doge. Where that happened, whereas Bitcoin, and I'll stop my rambling here in 4 or 5 minutes, I'm sure. Bitcoin seems to be, more of this gold standard, but I'm getting told that all these other ones are gold standard too. So how does that whole thing shape up, Charlie?
Yeah, so it started with Ethereum, which became programmable money driven by smart contracts, which is just a fancy term for software on the blockchain. And they're programmed to do a function without any intermediaries. So it's built into this trustless system. So people can look at the code and say, hey, this is doing this specific task, and it will do upon completion. So a lot of those if-then type of statements. And where it's kind of bled into is now over 30,000 cryptos. And so that's where this noise is coming into play, or like you're talking about, the hype. And, so just like business fundamentals, 90% of them are going to fail, right? So, and it probably in this case could be more like 95%. So that's where education is key. What is the utility? What is the use case of these coins that are coming out? Meme coins, for example, they're more of a social token where they attract community because of the story, because how cute it is. Doge actually does have a use case as another peer-to-peer currency. And now the same thing is coming in on the Dogecoin network are this layer 2 type of development. And not too many people know about that, but there will be more and more use cases for Dogecoin and that whole ecosystem. And all these other ecosystems are kind of doing the same thing. You'll have, these different tokens for access. The wallets can also be used for access. They're proof of ownership. And the wallets are there primarily just to now self-custody these coins. And, and here's a good lesson, FTX fiasco wouldn't have been as bad if there was more people educating users and investors on the risks involved with these exchanges. So yeah, you can buy and sell on the exchanges, but best practices is to send it to a wallet that you have self custody over.
Right. Just to clarify on that for people who might not know, with FTX, it was basically just that most of the people who lost, or like most of the money that was lost, it was basically kept on the exchange rather than actually being pulled out at any point, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And same thing with Coinbase or Uphold or Binance. Binance is under SEC sanctions or investigation, and it's still there for people to trade, but how much assets are on those exchanges held by U.S. citizens? All they need to do is open up a wallet and send those coins to their own wallet.
Talking about the education side of it, I think there's a really interesting thing, and I don't think this is a barrier to success by any means, because you could make this argument about just about any industry, but it's that the education piece, to put it bluntly, most of the time us average folks hear people talking about crypto and they start talking about blockchain and you can check all this kind of stuff. It's like, yes, you can, but looking at us three right here, Charlie, you're the one who understands any of what that means. I'm never going to go check. I'm never going to do all those things. I need the layer 2, like you're talking about. I need the easier version for us. Could you talk a little bit about how we might be able to bridge that gap in the education a little bit? Or is that just what the layer 2 is, where it's like, I don't need to know as much. I can play it just like I would anything else. It's simplified to that point.
Yeah. So that's a good point. So currently the user interfaces are clunky. So it's hard for people to use it, just like anything tech. You get a new app and master it, so to speak, right? So same thing with crypto, and you learn by repetition. You have to put in the upfront education on the safety and security part of it, and then that confidence will come with further use. And the other part as well in education is publications like GOO E Magazine, where we are teaching people about new projects that are coming out, best practices, history, and all those things are important. Just like we went through the .com days, it took a long time for adoption to occur, but people got used to it, and then companies started migrating to web, and then users, and then now we're in this point where how would we live without it? And my thesis is that cryptocurrency is just this evolution of the internet, and it will allow us to transact and do business and conduct commerce around the world more easily with less fees immediately. And the way that they're kind of building it out is in this decentralized model where who controls the internet these days? It's pretty much Amazon, Google, Facebook, and Microsoft. So now these new models in decentralization, the user can benefit. We can opt into selling our data and get rewarded for it. Whereas in the current model with Google and Facebook, we're the product, right? They're taking our information because of what, we are typing or talking about or emailing or the things we're clicking on. They're collecting that data and selling it, repackaging it, and they're the ones who are making all the money. And so in this new Web3 evolution, the model is turning in favor of the user base.
One thing before you go, Dad, I just wanted to add there. I think there's an interesting piece. As much as we can look at this as like this brand new thing, I think you hit on something really, really good there, Charlie, which is just the education, getting used to the new tool, getting used to the new purchase, whatever new investment, whatever it is. Just wanted to throw out this example that I got from one of the Freakonomics books I always loved, and they talk about, it's like, why are we better at buying milk than we are at buying a car? Why are we better at buying groceries than we are at selecting a mate, selecting a spouse? And it's like, well, because you only do those things once. How often do you buy a car? 3 times, 4 times? How often do you pick a spouse? Once, hopefully. Like, it's like those kind of things. You only get one chance. You don't get to practice that at all. And I think that's a really important piece of, we can look at what's happening now, but people don't know what they're doing. So you're going to see more of those failures. You talk about the 90% versus the 95% failure. You're going to see a lot more of that because people don't know what they're dealing with. And that's just kind of a natural growth of any new entity.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. And, beyond kind of the point you were making there is, we have first and foremost in America are the speculators. We're in it to make the money, right? And hopefully find the next Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Apple of crypto, which there still is that possibility. And the other point is now the use cases of doing business together. And us as Americans, we kind of need to think outside of our U.S. comfort bubble, where if you think about it from third world countries, they may get paid on a Friday and their currency is worth half of what it was on Monday because of their rampant inflation or unstable governments, unstable currency. So a lot of them adopted crypto or Bitcoin primarily because they could, even though it's volatile, they had more certainty in the value of Bitcoin than they did their own nation's currency.
All right, there's a couple of things I wanted to get into. Let Camden ask too many questions in a row. My list is like, so here's one thing I'm thinking of, and I'm always a metaphor guy. It helps me understand. It sounds like we're starting off with cryptocurrency and the playing slots, right? It's just there is no pattern to it, right? Everybody claims there's a pattern to pulling the lever or pushing the button, like my buddy Flick does, and he sends me a picture of $5,000. Doesn't send me the picture of the $20,000 he lost to get the $5,000. Right? It's just completely random. And we're with cryptocurrency, I feel like that's where it started. I mean, you're really saying, all right, well, I might make, let me invest $100 and I might make $100 back. I might make $10,000. I may never see that $100 again. And now here's my analogy. I guess it's more analogy than metaphor. Now I feel almost like we're advancing into blackjack, where I can go, okay, well, he's got that. Or even Texas Hold'em. You could use Texas Hold'em too, because I'm looking at the cards on the table and I'm narrowing down my odds to place my bets. Does that metaphor kind of work in the growth of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's say if you have, $2,000 in risk capital and you want to spread it around a little bit. So let's say you split up into 8 equal coins of, $25 or $250 each. Well, it could be, 3 of those go to zero. Maybe another 3 of them do pretty well. But what if maybe even 2 of them do a 10x or 20x? Well, now you've made your whole portfolio just on two choices. So that's one strategy that people use. And then they'll take those profits and then dump it back into either Bitcoin or Ethereum, which are the blue chips. So, that's one way that people do that instead of just day trading.
So,
and the term.
Oh, come on, Camden, dadgummit, boy.
I was going to say the blue chips. It's just like when you look at stocks, you say the same kind of thing. Like what you're talking about there at the slot stat. That's like the penny stocks of this thing might go, but who freaking knows?
No, it's very true. So my other one is how does the perceived value start to become a real value? Because you and I are sitting there and you're like, look at this. Let me show you what I got in my wallet. Woo, man. I'm like, dude, let me show you what I got in my wallet. Pull it out and I see, I got this right here. Like that right there, sort of thing. And it's like the perceived value, how does that become normalized? I think is really the question.
Yeah, the great thing about most of the bigger cryptos are you can easily swap it to a US stable coin, they call it. So you have a couple of them out there. And so you can easily turn it into something that is pegged to $1. And then you can transfer that easily to your Coinbase account and deposit it in your bank account. A lot of these exchanges now even have a Visa card where you can park it into USDC, which is US dollar coin, and spend it like you normally do. And so that's one big advantage now that it's progressed into these regulated exchanges.
Can I go now?
Well,
I was to be the third one.
So, because right in that same line, I'm fascinated with the blockchain. You know, that was 15 years ago that I read my first article on blockchain, and it was going to change this and change that, and how we do contracts and all this stuff. And I feel like I'm back. Back when I was a kid, I used to get this science magazine called Omni. And as I got older, I think it was Omni, whatever it was. It was one of those magazines, big, nice, thick magazine, beautiful pictures about all this cool stuff that was going to happen in the future. And as I got older, I got more frustrated with it because it kept showing me stuff that I was going to get. And I wouldn't get it. And I'd be like, where the hell is this thing? What's this gadget and that gadget? And finally, I just canceled it because I considered it a false narrative of the future. I feel like blockchain is falling in that same thing. It was supposed to make all my contracting, all my money exchange, even paying employees, all of that was supposed to be easier. And that was 15 years ago. I read that article. What the hell's going on? Because it's all your fault, Charlie, in case you ain't figured this out.
Right? All right. So I have a good explanation for that. So again, in this whole evolution of the internet, blockchain is basically a different set of rails on the internet. So there's plenty of institutions that love the blockchain technology, and there's a lot of use cases for that, and I'll touch on that in a second. But what's overshadowing that is cryptocurrency is also built on the blockchain, and that's who's taken all the, the hype, so to speak, and all the stories and the speculation that, all of us love to, gamble in. So, going back to institutions, and even in our most recent edition of Goose, Constellation Network is actually working with the DoD on doing secure data transmission on the blockchain. Do you think the DoD really cares about coins and tokens? No, but they want security. They want to keep us safe. They want to be able to, do transmission bounce it off a satellite and then, hit it over in Japan or something like that. So there's a lot of use cases for blockchain, and to describe what blockchain is to people is it's basically a digital public ledger of debits and credits, and that can be coins and tokens, or it can be data. And then all of us, we are actually witnesses to the blockchain. If you know how to look on the blockchain, you can see the records and recorded, and that's either proof of ownership or verification of truth of that data. So these are some of the use cases that are coming out, and this is going to be even more important as AI evolves. And how are we going to verify that this information that was disseminated, did it come from AI? Is it 100% true? Or did it come from a source that can be verified?
Camden, didn't you explore some of that when you were working at the farm?
Verby?
No.
Oh.
When you were working at the farm, I thought you were exploring the whole organic tracing. So I know my tomato came from, I'm validating it actually came from that farm over there through blockchain.
Yeah, exactly. And, I think that's another use case for it is to track those kind of things, make sure, your food that you think is being grown locally and organically and all that kind of stuff is actually going there. And then I think the interesting thing, I kind of made this comment earlier, Charlie, about it's like, well, yes, you can go check the things, but it's like, who's actually going to go check? And like, that's a very different thing. But the thing that I'm thinking here is that's also just about how most of these information systems work. You know, you talk about the, what is it, the public, I can't think of the name of the act, but the thing that basically the government has to tell us what they're doing after 20 years of, you know, hiding ex-CIA things, and then they put it out, and it goes up on there, and nobody reads it except for one guy who goes on YouTube and talks about it. Well, that is a way to take that information and spread it out there. And I think the interesting thing there becomes the trust being built into it by these different use cases helps to legitimize it in the bigger use case. The fact that I can see my tomato, if I wanted to, I could scan the QR code on there and I can see who picked the tomato at what farm and what they were using on it and all those kind of things because it's all connected in there. That is a way to legitimize it looking forward into things that might be a little bit more abstract. And with that, Charlie, actually, that sets up a question I was thinking earlier, which is, what do you think? And people, full disclosure, I'm expecting a Charlie opinion here. This is not going to be a fact, you know, no investment advice or whatever. But what do you think is that like breaking point of businesses and people jumping on this? Because I saw the ATMs pop up at 7-Elevens and stuff. That didn't do anything. Like, what is the thing that's going to pop up that's going to actually get people involved?
I mean, unfortunately, it's probably going to come down to, you know, cryptocurrency again. But you know, we saw the celebrities jumping into it with NFTs. You know, they're flashy, you know, it's a visual, it's entertaining. So I think entertainment industry is going to be a big part of it. You know, anything to do with IP rights is going to be, I think, a big use case. And then, you know, getting paid for a lot of these, because if you guys remember Napster was decentralized, but they were totally cutting out the creators, where now in blockchain, the creators can benefit. And I do think ticketing could be a big solution. How bad is it in the secondary market in ticketing with Ticketmaster? I mean, talk about the margins and the ups, you know, the increases that they have for those tickets, but they're cutting out the creators. So I'm waiting for that day where Taylor Swift's like, hey, you know, we listed our ticket at $500 and now it's selling for $5,000, but she's not seeing any of that $4,500. But they can code into the blockchain. They can use NFTs for proof of ownership, but every time it sells in the secondary market, they could code in, hey, Taylor Swift's going to make 5% of every resale in the secondary market. So if it sells for $1,000, oh, she gets, you know, her $50. If it sells for $5,000, she gets her $250 on top of that. So that's a very big use case. I think that's going to be potentially disruptive to the secondary market, ticket brokers and all that. And I mean, we saw how powerful Napster was and how much the creators made us think about that. So I think this could be a big one. You know, and that's kind of enterprise. And then, you know, piggybacking on what I was saying earlier with other institutions, enterprise adoption, and you guys were also mentioning it too, but you have supply chain management and then you have logistics. So all of that can be recorded. And yes, if you want to look at it and verify that, you can, but isn't it nice to know that, hey, we know this is on the blockchain, so we can trust it and we can check our records if we need to. So it can speed up things more efficiently. And then there'll be a day where, hey, you know, it'll generate a QR code, kind of like an NFT, and they can just scan it and be like, okay, it arrived in Japan from, you know, San Francisco. And there you go.
What, and I'm getting full speculation here. We might not have a good answer, but I want to ask the question anyway, what is a sexy use case that is more legitimate in that way? Because what I hear a lot, and not just this conversation, but other conversations around blockchain, is it's a lot of really, really good things for businesses and supply chains and all that. And then it's like, okay, but I don't care about tracking my tomatoes. Or I don't care about, you know, it's not a very fun thing. Then you kind of alluded to it. It's like, then there's the NFTs and the really like sexy kind of other end of it. Is there a sexy use case that's going to get people excited that, you know, is a little bit more legitimate like that?
You know, I've, not to repeat what I was talking about from the entertainment industry, I think that's probably the sexiest one out there. But these incentive models are pretty cool. I was talking about it in this new decentralized model. It is driven by incentives. So, I always ask this question, what fundamentally gives Facebook and Google its value?
Advertising.
Would you agree that well, but first, would you agree that it's all of us, their user base, right?
Yeah.
And then, like I was saying earlier, they're repackaging that to their advertisers. So that's one big example of the potential sexiness of, hey, if you can get rewarded and we can grow this organically through community and referrals and even affiliate marketing, that is a perfect recipe for organic growth, where you are giving incentive to the user base instead of a centralized company that needs to report to their stockholders, right?
And I like that idea because, I've always been a decentralized execution sort of guy, thanks to my special ops upbringing. And it reminds me of, and I'm not going to mention the website because I don't trust it yet, but the website that Camden and I were looking at, where you post something, a lesson or something like that, and then part of the website is these other people sell it for you, kind of in a referral network sort of thing. And I was approached maybe a year or two of doing that with our IP that we put out there, where there's it's authorized. Charlie, you bought it, so you get it. But if you want to share it to somebody, then you can share it for this much more. You pay it, and it was all set. Supposedly, we never got to he never got to the coding part of it, but the concept part of it makes great sense when you put IP out there and being able to hold on to it and control it so that it's not pilfered or distributed in and I think your description or your reference to Napster is so spot on, except for back then it was just people who had songs. Now, man, think of the millions and millions of people who have intellectual property out there. And you know what? If somebody's sharing some of my stuff, some of it I'm okay with. Some of it I'll be like, hey, you shouldn't be given that. So, what's that take to get to where the small business, the Otis posting a whiskey words can put a blockchain intellectual property sort of holder on that? It seems like a bridge, like a long ways away.
Yeah. So, and a lot of that can come down to, again, NFTs. And I think there's going to be more use cases with NFTs. And this kind of came out, but the whole hype around NFTs being our cool profile pic, because I love bulldogs and now my profile pic's a bulldog. But let's say from a business and branding point of view, let's say Tribe and Purpose has an NFT release because you want to drive your brand, you want to drive community engagement, you want to drive loyalty. So let's say you issue a special edition of NFTs, and maybe 2 of them are super rare or like VIP. The VIP holders get other benefits. Maybe they get like your top tier consulting package, and then maybe 100 of them are just the regular group coaching or consulting. So you can structure it in different ways. So if you can take that same concept even to a pizza restaurant who wants to drive more customer adoption and loyalty, they can have an NFT on their phone that says, hey, every time you order here, orders over $20, you get 25% off. And so that's something that they can have forever on their phone. And how about even like sneakers? So let's say Nike issues NFTs, and there's only one NFT that you get to go to a NBA finals conference game or something like that. And then all the rest are in a contest for a drawing for 50 of the limited release of the sneakers. So I say that NFTs reward creativity, where as creative as you can be as a brand, you can drive that customer loyalty, brand engagement, brand recognition, and that organic growth. Like, hey, this is something cool. I'm going to get in on this. It's only $50 for this NFT, and I have a chance to go to the NBA finals and have a, limited release of the sneakers.
You mean the NBA finals in Denver? Coming up in
right? That's what I was getting at.
You got me thinking, Charlie. What would you define the limiting factor for blockchain at this time? Computational power comes to mind because we're getting into the technology world there. We've already kind of talked about the market interest, the human interest in it. Where do you think that limiting factor is now? And how do you think that can change in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I would be shocked if there would be any kind of computational power limitations. If anything, it could be sucked up by AI, in my opinion. And they're combining forces with blockchain. So here's a good example. Let's say on your gaming computer at home, you have your nice GPU running, but it's not running all the time. So you could plug that into this network where they will tap into it when it's idle, just like the Airbnb concept or Uber concept. They're tapping into idle property and vehicles to get people into homes, heads in beds, or your butts in the seat and where you want to go. So same thing with the GPUs that aren't being used. They can tap into the network, and you can allow access to those computing resources for these other networks. So again, this is the benefit of decentralization and allowing idle assets to be utilized when you're not using them.
And just to add one more layer to that, you mentioned how AI changes the computational aspect there. The reason I was asking that is because when we start looking, when we really get into the futurism and start to look at all this kind of stuff, one of the things that always comes to mind for me is the quantum computing. And I always think it's a very interesting thing of that's something that can completely change a handful of things. Is this one of those areas that's going to get completely changed because of the computational power there? Or is this going to be one that's kind of doing its own thing in that way?
I like how you think, because I've actually keyed in on that as well. And there's a couple solutions in crypto or blockchain that are trying to be ahead of it. They do think that quantum computing will be like the next big narrative, like AI, both for the risks and security dangers with that. But now they're creating solutions for quantum computing where people can actually build or rebuild their blockchain or protocols with these security parameters in place.
I was trying to let the cuckoo clock finish, but we're just going to have her finish up the song there. So what I want to jump back as much as I love continuing down this road, but I want to jump back. And how did you dive into this? Because I mean, when I'm like, ooh, what's the risk? How are you mitigating the risk? How are you doing this? So you had to have accepted that risk. So what was the catalyst, to put a pin in the question? What was the catalyst that you said, all right, shit, why not, and throw it in?
Yep. Yeah. So, I mean, my background actually, I grew up on a farm. So, my dad was very entrepreneurial. We did $25 a month in New Century mutual funds back in the day. He passed away in 98, and there's 7 of us kids. So we got a little bit of life insurance, but I was studying tech in college and loved tech. I was literally like Alex P. Keaton, walking around with a business section, just digging into all these tech articles back in the day. But I wanted to honor him when he passed and not just, waste, what we were gifted with from the life insurance. So I invested in 98 in the .coms, did very well, loved it so much. I got licensed in 2001. So I've always been in investments and, studying and reading. And then, I had an opportunity back in 2014 to either invest in cannabis or Bitcoin. And a bunch of us threw some money together, and they all wanted to go into cannabis because we live here in Colorado. Chose poorly. Yeah, that's a whole nother story. So when the pandemic lockdown happened, I'm like sitting there at the computer. I'm like, all right, I'm just going to dig into Bitcoin and Ethereum. So bought my first coins back in the day and went down every hole I could. And one of the other big books that I loved reading as I was growing was Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, and income producing assets and passive income. So I'm like, I wonder if we can do the same thing with crypto. And sure enough, there are ways that you can earn yield and generate passive income. Let's see, I would think I just got a network. All right. Did it break up on your end there for a sec?
Yeah, but you're back now.
Yes.
So.
Okay. All right. So to continue that, there are ways you can generate passive income with cryptocurrency. So basically, there's another book out there called Life After Google by George Gilder. And he talks about how the wealthy of the future will own networks. So I took those two books and figured out how we can apply that to crypto. And yes, in a decentralized user base, we can own parts of the network. So like Bitcoin, you can own a miner. Same thing with proof of stake. You can own nodes. So even phones can be a node and you can mine things like that. So there's a lot of potential in how the user base can continue to benefit by owning parts of the network, either through coins and tokens or actually cloud-based or physical assets on the network. And you get rewarded for allowing the transactions to go through your device in a form of either Bitcoin or some of these other coins. So that's a pretty cool incentive, in my opinion, on where this is all going. I'm trying to think of the catalyst. So I would say the catalyst was actually, I was thankful for COVID, because I probably wouldn't have sat down and focused on Bitcoin and Ethereum, to be honest.
Right. You're not allowed to go anywhere, so you might as well sit down and read, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Charlie, just a quick question on that, because you mentioned growing up on a farm. I feel like there is a very interesting psychology aspect there, because most people, if you're talking the farm and those kind of situations, it's very physical. You can feel it. I am investing in my land because I own the land. I can see the land. I can put the seeds in. I can take care of the seeds. All that kind of I'm literally here. Now you're off in, la la land on all this imaginary crypto and blockchain that is completely abstract. How do you connect those two? I'd be really interested.
Yeah, so actually, that's a really good question. And to me, it comes down to two things: self-reliance and personal responsibility. So it's sad to see how people, or even citizens of every country, are becoming more and more reliant on their government, right? So, I'm a big believer in being as self-reliant as possible. So we can do that through investing, building a good business, saving, not spending more than you make, right? All those lessons. So the lessons I took at working on the farm just kind of, were values that, made me who I am. And, that's part of what we also teach. And that's one reason why I really like cryptocurrency is you have to be personally responsible. You have to do your own research. You have to put in the education, and, you can't blame anyone else for the choices that you make. So yeah, how much risk do you want to take? And, what security measures are you putting in place? And then if you are more and more personally responsible, that will help you become more self-reliant, hopefully.
To shift gears a little bit here, as we talk about the use cases and those kind of things and looking forward at it, one of the things that really came to mind, talking about like limiting factors and those kind of things and really getting it to the market, getting it to the people, is this need for more use cases. But really what comes to mind, the way I want to put it, is there's a need for more entrepreneurs. You need more people coming up with ways to connect things and figure out new ways to build these systems in ways that actually make sense. Could you talk a little bit about how, or maybe for entrepreneurs out there listening, maybe they're like me, they're thinking about business ideas, they got all this stuff going around. I'm not the computer guy though. How the hell could I ever get involved? Like Dad, you mentioned the agriculture case earlier. I have a background in agriculture. I want to work on sustainable agriculture, all those kind of things. So I could kind of connect that, but I don't want to get into the coding and all that kind of stuff. What's the path forward for those entrepreneurs who see this this is not only a big opportunity, but a big chance to make an impact by solving some of these problems. But, I'm not a computer guy. What's your answer there?
Yeah, I would answer that with a question. What resources are you bringing to the table? Are you bringing capital? Are you bringing a talented team? Are you talented yourself? So just like in normal business, yeah, what are you bringing to the table to add value and create or solve a big problem? So it's still fundamental business applies to these endeavors, but now it's just more technology involved. So it is attracting the kid sitting in the basement that's coding, and now that he can do something and build something that's beneficial for everybody, and maybe build a brand or a really good use case out of it.
Yeah, I think that's part of what makes this. It's still a little bit of wild, wild west. There's still the belief that what's the next unicorn coming, and there's some really interesting parts and pieces on this this whole thing. Because like I said, I read my first article I can remember, and I'm pretty sure it was 2010, and I was like fascinated by blockchain. And yeah, it's just, there's probably fear out there. And I think the fear of the unknown, the fear of change, which is also the fear of unknown, without getting too far into that philosophy. I think that's an interesting aspect. Before I jump into what I learned, I'd be real curious when you put your crypto crystal ball. Ooh, man. I like that phrase. The crypto crystal ball.
There you go.
Yeah, I might have to cryptocrystalball.com. Buy that one up right now.
That could be an article in the Goose magazine.
There you go. Well, I'll give you the chance to frame that article right now. When you look at the crypto crystal ball, right, what's the 5-year, 10-year thing you're seeing?
The only thing that we have to compare it to is, where did we come in the .com days? And this whole thesis of it's the evolution of the internet, it's, and I already laid out that 90% of them are probably going to fail. So, it comes down to fundamental businesses and who's going to make it, who's providing the best solutions to the problems out there, who's building the best communities. And, that's really what drives these decentralized models and specific crypto communities. So, I think it's going to be, different sectors in our economy, what I call more of this digital economy. And my show that I do is preparing for the digital economy. So I don't just talk about crypto. I talk about digital marketing and all these other aspects that can affect us in the future. And how do we prepare? How do we pivot? AI is going to play into all this. So, I'm a big believer in betting on technology, but we have to do the research. We have to pay attention, continue absorbing, reading, talking, and networking. And to answer the other question too, for entrepreneurs and innovators, networking is a big part of it. It does come down to who who you can trust, and, how can you build a team that you can sustainably grow with together, where we know, and this goes to what you teach, is, forming your team, then the right team, you get the right people on the bus, right? And hopefully build something that, solves a big problem, but attracts a huge user base.
Awesome. And that's a great way to lead me into what I learned. And before I say that, I just want to emphasize it all comes back to fundamental good business sense and doing it the right way, right? It's, if you're gonna risk it, then make sure that's the capital that you can allow to risk it with, not your house payment or the payroll. Don't go. It ain't no different than taking payroll and going to Las Vegas and I'm putting the payroll check on 27 Black and hoping we win, because if we do, it'd be great. Yeah. What I learned, something very simple, but I think it's I laugh at myself because I love abbreviations and shortcuts and acronyms and things like that, is the USDC, the US dollar coin. That's what's in my wallet. Matter of fact, I think I got a couple of nickels in my pocket too. USDC going on here at the house. So yeah. Camden, how about you? What'd you learn?
Yeah, I think for me, it was a really good chance to, dive deeper into this, after the boom and the meme coins and all of that, to have a much more legitimate conversation around what the reality is, kind of between those two parameters, like we talked about at the beginning of the show. And I think the big thing that I keep thinking back is to the opportunity for social capital there. You talked, Charlie, about, all these developing countries, third world countries dealing with inflation, all these kind of things. One of the big problems, without fully going down my development econ rabbit hole, one of the biggest problems is just trust and just people believing that what they're doing is actually doing what it's supposed to do, that my tax dollars are actually going to go help the fire department, that it's actually all these kind of different things. And the more you can have that public, the more you can have that verified through things like the blockchain, the more social capital you can get. And that can do, I don't know if that's the panacea for a lot of problems, but it can do a lot to build a lot of trust into people and to, build more community and those kind of things. So that's I don't know if that's a use case, Charlie, but that is a positive outcome that I see in the future.
Awesome. Charlie, how about you, man? What'd you learn?
I think what I learned was, it was interesting, the dichotomy or disparity between two different generations. And I could even be the third. I think I'm a little older than Camden, but I mean, your perspective, Otis, is, this skepticism and, you're almost right there. And, maybe you put in, a little bit, and then as you see more and more proof, people will become more and more believers. And then for Camden, the research and, you've grasped more of the technology part of it, and you're more open-minded and see it as what I mapped out as this evolution and all these use cases. So it was cool to kind of, all of us, three generations, play off of each other.
Yeah. Awesome. Hey, Charlie, how do folks find you? How do they subscribe to GOO E Magazine too?
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. It keeps chopping up a little bit, but thank you for that. You can email me at hello@goosemag.com, or you can check out our website, goosemag.com, and that's GOOSEMAG. And you can get your free copy of our GOO E Magazine on digital. And it is in over 40 countries so far. So that's pretty exciting.
Awesome. That congratulations on that, man. That is really cool. Charlie, man, it's been a lot of fun hanging out with you, making me feel like I need to go log into Bitcoin and drop some money in there, or Ethereum, or one of them things. Doge.
We're still early.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what everybody tells me. You're still early. Okay, whatever. Great having you, man.
Thank you for the opportunity, fellas.
Camden, run us out.
All right. Thank you all for listening to today's episode of 10X Your Team with Camden and Otis. And a special thanks to our guest, Charlie Stivers, for joining us today. Remember, you can watch full episodes of the show on YouTube at 10X Your Team. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please make sure to pass along to other lifelong learners in your tribe so they can enjoy it too. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. As always, the full archive of episodes is available at www.10xyourteam.net. Thanks again, and we'll see you all next time.